Natural versus enhanced lifters. What is the difference? Do you work out the same way? Do you eat the same nutrition? Let's find out. Let's start with being natural. How do you train when you're natural? Right, so there's not a huge difference on how to train natural versus enhanced. You gotta train a little bit smarter. And you gotta train each muscle group at least 2 times a week to get best results. Because every time you train, you stimulate protein synthesis. Protein synthesis is basically the process where the body is using amino acids to build muscle. And when you're natural, the only time when protein synthesis is getting elevated is after workout. After workout, depending on how you train, of course, your protein synthesis stays elevated for like 24 to 48 hours. And then it goes down again. So by training each muscle group only once a week, like the bro split, it is not enough to stimulate enough protein synthesis to really, build the muscle. So yeah, that's the downside when you're natural. And also you gotta be careful, you gotta train hard and heavy. Keep the frequency up, but the volume down. Don't do like 20 to like 35 sets per muscle group. It's way too much when you're natural. There's no need for that, You don't wanna turn overreaching or overtraining. Overreaching is the term we use when you train hard and too much and not enough breaks, and not enough sleep. Overtraining is worse. Overtraining means you stress your body so much that it might take months to get back to normal. So that's the downside with being natural. You don't have the problem when you're enhanced, but we get to that in a minute. All right, so and how to build muscle naturally. So as we said, you build muscle naturally through stimulating protein synthesis. Now, there's 2 ways naturally how to stimulate protein synthesis. As we just said, through training. It stays elevated for 24 to 48 hours. And then also through nutrition, but to a certain degree. So, that is really the only way on how to stimulate protein synthesis where the body actually builds muscle. So, and that's why you have to train hard and smart. Cortisol. Yeah, cortisol is basically the stress hormone. Cortisol gets released when you train too much, when you have stress at work, going through a divorce, or whatever the issue might be. When cortisol is getting released, it will hold you back from burning fat and gaining muscle. You're hitting a plateau and you're wasting your time in the gym. When you're enhanced, you don't have the problem. So, again, being natural and stimulating cortisol is not a good idea. So that's why it's important to recover, to eat right, and to train smart and hard. How much protein is needed? Okay, so as a natural lifter, the research has shown that 0.7 grams to 1 gram per pound is plenty to stimulate protein synthesis and to build muscle as a natural lifter. Anything over a gram doesn't really have an additional benefits. And of course, I like to use the fingerprint analogy. Everybody has a different fingerprint, which means everybody's genetics is a little different. And some people were born with, more myostatins, which means more muscle fibers. And some individuals can have a high uptake on amino acids. But generally speaking, 0.7 to 1 gram per pound is plenty, as a natural lifter. Supplements. Supplements are important when you're natural, okay? You need amino acids. Amino acids is probably the number 1 supplement you need to build muscle and to recover fast. There's just no way around it. Without amino acids, you're not gonna recover and you're not gonna build muscle. And when you train, remember what we said, when you train, you stimulate protein synthesis. That's when the body needs the amino acids. So feed the body with amino acids prior training and after training, and even at night before you go to sleep. Because remember, we build muscle when we sleep, when we rest, not when we train. Oh yeah, and of course, not just amino acids, you know, fish oil, believe it or not, you know, helps with protein synthesis. Fish oil has even shown, there has been an interesting research about it, which blew my mind too, I had no idea. Also helps you with stimulating HGH production and protein synthesis. So fish oil is a really good supplement to gain muscle, believe it or not. And then of course, no brainer, creatine. Creatine is probably the most researched supplement on the market. We all know it works. It might have a little downside that it might retain a little bit of water retention, but again, it helps you to build muscle. And then the downside is when you get ready for competition, like when you cut, when you're in a diet. Now here's the thing, when you're natural, you gotta be careful. Don't go too low on the calories. Don't go way below your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, which is basically the calories your body needs without activity. Because if you go too low on the calories and you're natural, the body will burn muscle as fuel, and you're gonna lose the hard-earned muscle, which took you probably a year to build. So be careful when it comes to that. When you're enhanced, you get away with it, but when you're natural, be smart. Have a nice, solid diet. Take more time, you know, if you lose 1 pound per week, that's plenty. Anything more than that, that might be, you know, some muscle involved. So take your time, start dieting a little earlier when you're natural, because otherwise you're gonna burn some muscle. So that's the downside when you're natural. So remember, you need to know your number, the calories, very important. All right, so yeah, that was for natural. And now let's see what the difference is of being enhanced. All right, so the difference is you can keep the frequency and the volume high. But studies have shown that training each muscle group only once per week gives you also great results. Why? Because when you're enhanced, you know, you constantly, your protein synthesis is constantly elevated. Remember what we said, when you're natural, it's only elevated for 24 to 48 hours after each workout? Well, guess what? When you're on gear, it's elevated 24/7, around the clock. Now, and then when you train, it gets elevated even more. If you eat protein, certain nutrition, it gets elevated even more. So everything you do on steroids is enhanced. So the way you train, I mean, it's really up to you. There's no real, you know, plan on how to train. You can train each muscle group 2 times a week and have great results. But what I'm saying is, even if you just train each muscle group once per week, you're gonna have great results also because of protein synthesis, because it's constantly elevated. Next one is how to build muscle on gear. Well, like we just said, is because protein synthesis is elevated around the clock, so the body can, you know, use amino acids, which comes from protein, to create protein synthesis. Therefore, you can build muscle much quicker. And also, when you're enhanced, the body can absorb protein and amino acids basically even more. So you can consume more protein and more amino acids, and the body has the capacity to take it up and build muscle, which the body doesn't have when you're natural. There's a certain capacity, a certain cap. And how to prevent injuries. Okay, when it comes to injuries, so that's the downside when you're on gear. You need to do more cardio. You want to keep your heart healthy. 20 minutes of cardio, I'm sure you've seen it in the gym. You will see like all the professional bodybuilders or any bodybuilder who's serious about health does cardio, like on the treadmill or on the bike for about 20 minutes. Just enough to keep the, keep the heart rate up. That helps a lot with, keeping your heart healthy. Also, which is probably the biggest downside when it comes to taking gear, is your muscle is growing so fast, your strength is going off the roof, but your tendons and your ligaments can't keep up. So a lot of times when you train too heavy and you're on gear, guess what? You pop a tendon. So be careful. It's not necessary to train super heavy when you're on gear. All you need to do is give it the pump, get the blood flow going. You already in protein synthesis anyways, so you don't need to go super heavy on gear. It doesn't do any good. Next one is cortisol. Okay, so that's the beauty again. Certain steroids blocking cortisol. Remember what you said when you're natural and cortisol basically holds you back from burning fat and building muscle when you're stressed out? Well, certain steroids actually block cortisol, which means nothing is holding you back from burning fat and building muscle. That's a huge plus. Even if you're stressed out, cortisol will have a chance. And yeah, that's a big plus. And how much protein is needed? Okay, so there also have been some interesting studies. When you're in gear, like we said before, the body can absorb more protein, amino acids. So, therefore, the more protein, the more amino acids you take, right? The more muscles you build. Well, not so much. There's been a study. It has shown that 1 gram to 1.5 gram per pound had the biggest benefit on gear when it comes to building muscle. So anything more than 1.5, which is quite a bit, didn't have any extra benefits no more. So keep that range, if you're on gear. Supplements are more important when you're in gear. Why? Because you're stressing your kidneys, you're stressing your liver, you're stressing your heart. So you have to take certain supplements to cleanse your liver and your kidneys. And also to keep your heart healthy, not just doing the cardio. Now, of course, also when you take additional amino acids, it's more beneficial because the body has the capacity to take up the amino acids and build muscle. But the most important thing is when you're in gear is take supplements to keep everything cleansed. So, and here's the beauty, cutting diet. So here's the thing. When you get ready for competition and you put yourself on a low calorie diet and you take some gear, guess what? You're not going to lose any muscle. Remember what we said. When you're natural, you need to be careful. If you go too low in nutrition, you burn muscle. Gear prevents you from burning muscle. Therefore, you can go low in calories and get shredded without losing muscle. That's the beauty of gear. Right, I hope this information was helpful. I know I try to compress it to, as short as possible. There's, of course, way more details we can talk about. If you guys have any questions, leave me a comment on YouTube and follow me on Instagram. It's Dave RE77. You can direct message me with any questions. And thank you for watching.